I'm Arnab Roy, CFO for Maruti Suzuki. So what I'm going to do in next 15 minutes or so is divide the whole talk into two parts. The first part obviously will be a little conceptual. We will talk about and will limit to the subject, which is AI and its use for the CFO. The second part, I'll give you some practical snippets from the Maruti Suzuki journey, how we are approaching it. So a large organization, you will get a flavor of how practically it is done. And try and keep some 2-3 minutes for question. So let's time ourselves. It's about 3:20. So about 3:35, I'll try to wrap it up. So if you see the journey of automation, I think it is going through several stages of evolution. I think the first part, when we talk about automation, and sometimes we kind of interlink or misrepresent the terms. Is it possible to take those chairs out so it will be easier for the audience to see? Yeah. Yeah. So the Gen 1 of this whole automation was the RPAs. I think many of us are using RPAs in various applications. Primary objective of using the RPAs was on cost efficiency. The generation 2 of it was more on integrated automation, where some macro level impact across various value metrics has been doing. Gen 3 is now moving towards powered automation, which is with the advent of AI and Gen AI, we are reaching in that direction. So the idea is that from a cost efficiency, we are moving towards a strategic market differentiation. So that's the journey of the AI evolution. Sometimes we are interchangingly use the term, but overall, if you see, this is the direction in which we are going. I'm skipping a couple of slides and going straight to the point. So if you see here in this slide, the left side of the slide talks about the various tools which we have available. Now, obviously, most of the tools you would have used in some context or the other, whether it is a blockchain, whether it is a big data and advanced analytics, whether it is a smart process integration, whether it is cloud computing, Gen AI, machine learning. So these are various tools which has various objectives. I'm not going to spend time on the left side of the chart. I'll spend time on the right side of it. Now, with all these tools available, and as the previous panel was saying, today availability of tool is not a concern. It's everywhere there. You have knowledge partners who will give you tools. What one needs to really plan is the context in which you will apply those tools. That's most important. And what it does to your own internal team. So if you see it from a structure and role perspective, there is an integration of tech roles which is happening into traditional finance roles. And I'll give you some practical examples later. But this is a fundamental shift which is happening. So in organizations, you will find terms like data scientist, finance automation specialist, UX designer, cybersecurity, risk management professional. So these are roles which are emerging within finance. So that's one shift which is happening. The other thing which companies are realizing, especially large organizations, is the master data management is a very, very critical part of the whole thing. So there is COEs which are, or center of excellences which are getting established for data standardization, consistency, governance. So this is a fundamental shift which is happening. And with more and more global GBSs getting set out of India, this aspect of the role is getting amplified. The third thing which is happening is finance command centers. So if you look at it, the so-called CFO office, you are having a group of people who are doing a central commanding. The FP&A function is getting, in a way, replaced by this. You have a group of people who can control all the metrics, because when you have more automation, you can lead to this kind of a thing. And then there is a shared pool of data analysts which supports the finance business partner. So all the finance business partners who are working with your various verticals, there is a group of data analysts which is supporting. So that's the shift which we see happening on the role perspective. Now, what it means from a talent perspective, obviously the talent which understands both tech and domain, there is a premium for those talents. All organizations are scouting for talents who has both these dimensions. They understand tech in the right sense and they understand domain in the right sense. There is a diversity in hiring. You will see that a lot of engineers are finding now places in finance. If I talk about my own team in Maruti Suzuki, I have engineers who are part of finance. I have data scientist who is part of finance. So gone are those days where you only had a chartered accountant or a people with an accounting qualification as part of finance. So that is changing very fast. The other thing which is happening is the whole knowledge management is becoming more and more formalized. Organizations are making it more formal. And then various talent models are emerging. So what is happening is there are a lot of specialists today available in the market who may not like to join you as a full-time employee, but they are happy joining you as a gig worker or as a part-time worker. So this is another shift which is happening. Like as I speak, I have a guy who is 50-year-old in my team, uh, IIT Kanpur BTech, IIT Kharagpur MTech, data science MBA from IIM Bangalore, but he doesn't want to work full time. So he engages with me as a gig. He's my really go-to guru for all automation. So you have resources like this, which is now coming in and being part of the finance workforce. So it's a very, very interesting shift of talent profile which is happening today. So what it does to the whole finance expectation and consequently the CFO's expectation is that the organization is demanding certain things from finance today. So historically, if you see, I mean, the finance role was in a certain way, which I'm sure during the day you are getting snippets of that. But what is happening is agility is now becoming a key ask from a finance function. How you are generating value is becoming a key ask from the finance function. On-demand metrics. People are not willing to wait for the monthly MISs to come in. I think the users are becoming more and more demanding. Your CEOs, the operational head, they are becoming more and more, give me real-time analytics. Give me an on-demand matrix. Is it a self-service model of MISs which is available? So this is becoming a mantra. The business partner role, the finance business partner role is evolving and it is getting more depth. You need people who understand the business, who are able to articulate, who are able to tell a story. So that side of the role is emerging as a result of this. Now what really as finance leaders we need to think about is we need to segment the finance function, in my opinion, into some of the cycles. Now all transactions are coming what we loosely call a finance factory. With more and more GBSs coming in, transactional finance is getting into a finance factory. Repetitive models, standardized accounting, standardized policies, integrated data centers. So when the operations are getting automated, definitely finance will double down on business insight and services. And then the finance cycles are becoming more and more real time. As I said earlier, self-service models are emerging. So these are some of the global trends which is coming with the advent of technology. But having said that, and the earlier panel was touching in snippets on this point, now let me go into the Maruti Suzuki example and give you, with this conceptual framework, how an organization is doing. So if you see, we work in Maruti Suzuki on a cross-functional model. So essentially this whole business management is done by three teams: the strategy team, the finance team, and the IT team. Each has its own role to play, but we usually act as a cross-functional team which is driving the whole long-term plan, which is a 10-year plan. We have a 3-year plan, and then we have a 1-year plan. So the entire scenario, the forecasting, not just limited to the numbers, but also the operational aspect is getting done by this cross-functional team. Before you get into AI, I think it is very, very important that you define your tech architecture well. So the objective of this slide is to show you how an organization, which is a large-scale organization, about 1,50,000 crores in top line, how we have defined our tech architecture. So if you look at it, the stack is in 3 parts. The bottommost part of it, we have the system of recording. So in our case, it is the SAP. So SAP is the integral part of the digital core, and you can see that most of the systems which has an impact on any kind of numbers or any kind of a financial is covered within the SAP core. So we have the material management, production management, sales and distribution, maintenance, quality, everything under the SAP core. At the same time, every organization will have its same story. There are some legacy applications which has its own value, which is also residing as part of the system of recording. So that's the first thing. And then you have some data warehousing solution, which we call SAP++. So in that case, your planning system like Anaplan, Ariba, and systems like that, that's part of the data warehouse layer. Between the ERP and the data warehouse layer, there is an integrated data lake concept, which brings in both internal as well as external data. Now, once this stack is aligned, then only you can think of the predictive stack, which is where AI, Gen AI, IoT, and all will come in. But unless, see, it's like a building. Unless your fundamental of the building is there, you cannot make the top floor. So before you really, and this is a mistake which many organizations are doing. See, today, with due respect to all my consultant friends, there are a lot of people who will come and sell you a lot of things. But you need to really decide what not to take more than what to take. That's very, very important. And don't take anything just as a bolt-on unless you are clear on the architecture. So if one message I want to leave from the session is, please revisit your architecture, see how does it fit into the architecture, how was your basic, like classically, like I passed on my CA about 26, 27 years back. So at those days, we had a concept of a sales register and purchase register, as simple as that. If you can really get a real idea of what are the flex fields which you have in the sales register and purchase register, trust me, every automation flows from there. If you can utilize your flex fields properly, you can do any amount of automation. If you cannot do that, whatever bolt-on you put in, because ultimately, see, at the advent of Gen AI, what happens is, it's your ability to ask a smart question. Everything else in 5 years will get automated. You need people who have the right domain who can ask the smart question. But then how will the system give a smart answer? Depends on the integrated part. So that's something which I would really say, get more and more domain specialization in your teams, but keep this in mind. I don't want to make it a SAP session, but just to give you a view of when we talk about a core, and as you can see, we are building the core around SAP, so this is how we are building the core. Again, some more details, let me skip this. But now, what are the key challenges? Once you have to do this kind of a setup, what are the really key challenges? The key challenges are, first is the mindset. See, the biggest challenge which all of us face is the user mindset is in a certain way. It is assigned towards a standard platform. The second thing is, how do you upgrade the skill? An organization like us, which has been there for 43 years, you have people, we have multi-generation workforce. I have people who are 60 plus in my team. I have youngsters who are in their mid-20s in the team. Now, when you are dealing with workforce of so many generations, upgradation of the skill also has to be done in a certain way, because one solution will not work for all. So how do you do this is a big challenge. Sometimes lack of ownership and accountability and synergy. So these are the practical challenges you will face. It's very, very important that one keeps a process view and keep working on the right, this side of the thing if one has to move in the direction. Now, which brings us to the topic of change management. See, the whole automation is not about tools, it's about change management, how you adopt the architecture. So what are some of the essential facts of it? I think the biggest part is the leadership commitment. If you have an integrated management team which is committed in a certain direction, and there is a strong tone from the top, which means the CEO, the CFO, the CIO, the CHRO, at least these 4 people have to move in one direction. If you are not moving in one direction, trust me, there will be conflicting messages which will go in the organization. So very, very important. Second thing is the consistency of communication. How the leadership is consistently prioritizing digitization, that becomes very important. The environment, how collaborative is the environment, because there is no right answer, as we were discussing earlier also. There can be various answers to the same question. So how do you approach that in a collaborative way? And then how do you recognize the right behavior? How do you measure people and how do you recognize the right behavior? So these are some of the fundamental parts of this whole aspect. Now, what kind of skilling, and this is my final slide, and I'll then open it up for question, that how do you skill for AI-driven success? The first step is, for any transformation, is to assess the as-is before you go for it to be. So the first step is do a thorough skill assessment to determine the existing level of digital competencies within the organization. Please determine where the technical knowledge is there, where it is falling short, who has what kind of skill set. I think a mapping of this, and don't undermine the importance of this exercise. Mapping the as-is becomes very important. See, in today's world, everybody thinks that they're an expert in tech. But doing a realistic assessment of that becomes very important. What is the depth of expertise? Just knowing the lingos is not enough. You need to have a deep domain understanding of this. So that's very, very important. Second thing is go for formal certifications and trainings. Whenever you are getting into this and remembering the full architecture stack, it's very, very important that you bring formality into your assessment. There are formal tools, formal training. How you are doing your training stack becomes very, very important. Put a formal process there. And unless somebody is certified, don't let him or her play with the system. That's very, very important that you put that control. Third thing is that one has to integrate data science capabilities. So this is becoming a need of the hour. There are quite a few good programs which are coming in India, but you need to get some, there are 2 ways of doing it. Either you skill your workforce, But what I have seen in my experience, having been doing this for about more than 10 years now, a mix always helps. Get some external talent who will challenge your internal workforce, and you can keep a good balance between the two. And then how do you broad base the talent base? I would take a 1 minute diversion on this one and touch upon a very, very important topic from an India perspective, not linked to AI, but something which is very important. If you see in India, today our government is more digitized than any other country in the world. Now, what does it mean? It means, that the dimensioning of the finance professional has to change. So if you look today, as you know, we had a painful GST adoption from 2017 onwards. The first few years we all struggled. But now we have reached a level where most of the data between the buyers and seller is integrated. What is the next step the government has done? They have done a similar thing on the direct tax side. So the 26 ASs and other things, they give a similar picture on the direct tax. So direct and indirect tax is integrated. I am a member of the CII's National CFO committee, so I worked a little bit with the government. The next thing they are trying to do is, they are trying to integrate now customs and direct tax. So once they integrate customs and direct tax, you can imagine, because from a revenue purpose, the revenue objectives are different. TP will move in a certain direction, custom will move in the reverse direction, and the government will have both dimensioning of the data. And you will soon see notices is coming, which will challenge your position, what you have taken in one law versus the other law. Why I'm putting this diversion is, when you look at it from a talent dimensioning, we have to rethink our talent. You no longer can have a tax guy who doesn't understand accounting. Like, I used to work for a French company before I joined Maruti, Schneider Electric. I used to be the group CFO there. We used to get notices like that, and we had, I'll just take an accounting example. We used to do a project accounting. Now, project accounting is AS7. It goes on a percentage level. I get a notice saying that, look, your invoicing detail from GST shows this, whereas your book shows that the revenue is X. Can you reconcile the two? Now imagine in a country like India getting a notice like this, which shows that, boss, you have followed AS7 accounting, your revenue as per your balance sheet looks this, whereas your commercial invoice total in the GST looks this. Now if you have to address a notice like this, you need multidimensional talent. So keep this aspect in mind, and deeper domain expertise is needed. And the only way we can live with this government, which is more digitized than any of us, any of the organization, is we have to be razor sharp on this whole planning of data. AI can help a lot in this one. The use of AI in internal audit is another very, very important thing. The organizations which have started using the benefit of it, you will see. Suddenly what happens is, if you can integrate AI in internal audit, the sample becomes a population. So the risk is very well mitigated if you do that. So those are some snippets of AI's usage I would leave to you. Study the subject deeper, but each of it is a subject in itself, can't be covered in 10, 12 minutes. But I would leave with some of these thoughts. That's it from my side. I'll be happy to take a couple of questions if it is there, because as I promised, 3:35 I'll finish the session. So I still have 5 minutes. So happy to take a couple of questions if you want. Okay, can we get a mic for him, please?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Arnab. This was very insightful and enriching for all. Just if I may ask, how do you balance your time amidst all these things, especially in a company like Maruti, as you said, legacy systems, multi-dimensional workforce and all. So how do you balance your time and effort and focus? And if I may ask, is there anything which keeps you awake at night?
See, for me, the biggest contributor is the team. When you are part of a large organization, you can't do everything yourself. So it is really a function of the kind of team which is there. And I'm lucky I have quite a matured finance team. So that takes away a lot of pressure for me. Me personally, on my time, obviously it has to get segmented. So I trust a lot on my team and segment on things which is important. One of the things which we do as a leadership team is, we have a conscious choice of how much time when we are spending on tomorrow versus today. And all of us, we ensure that at least 25% of our time is spent in tomorrow and not more than 75% on today. So that's one matrix which we keep as a matrix for all the leadership members.
Great, thank you.
No question is bad question, so use this time if you want.
Yeah, hi Arnab. So my question is, how do you see Maruti in upcoming years with the dimensions changing towards the EV or, towards the, I would say, the SUVs getting sold. And, Maruti to us is like Hamara Bajaj, right? If two-wheeler was Bajaj, then four-wheeler is Maruti today also.
See, we have recently announced our strategic intent to the stock market. And so one of the limitations I have is I cannot speak anything which is not in the public domain. But this is in the public domain already. See, we have been there, as I told you, little over 40 years. So today we do about 2 million cars in India, 20 lakh cars. So we have announced our strategic intent to go to about 4 million cars, which is doubling from where we are today in the next 6 years. So that's the kind of growth we see in the Indian industry. Of course, the growth will come with its own challenges. If you see historically the automobile market today, it has been predominantly an ICE engine market. Although we have EVs and there's a lot of talks about EV, but the reality of the game is EV is less than 3% today of the market. Hybrids are about 2% in the market. CNGs are more prevalent today in India. CNG is about 18% of the market. Rest is either a petrol or diesel car. So that's the composition of the market today. But if you look at countries like Europe or US, the composition of a greener technology is much higher. Of course, in India, I mean, we first will have to also green the generation side of it, because 70% of what the power which we generate in the country is still fossil. So our real greening will happen when we can make the energy generation more green. And then, of course, on the utilization side, the government and all of us will move faster towards an EV adoption. So that's where the future will go. It will be a combination of various powertrains, and hence we are gearing up for a situation where manufacturing will be more complex. So you will have 6 or 7 types of powertrains, or 6 or 7 types of different manufacturing processes within the organizations. So hence, we are revisiting the whole organization, especially to cater to this kind of a growth, when you will live in a complex environment like this. So that's the journey which we are in.